Welcome to Hidden History, Stories from the Secret City. I'm Keith McDaniel, along with my co-host, Ray Smith. Good afternoon, Ray.
Hi, Keith. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You got a special guest lined up to be with us today, all the way from across the pond, don't you?
Yes, he is. Absolutely. David Wachs is with us, and you and I both know him from his documentary film that he created about a tremendous gentleman, Jack Beers.
Hmm.
The name of it was Holes in My Shoes, and I believe that Jack was here when you had the Secret City Film Festival,
That is
and
true.
actually
That
included
is correct.
his documentary in that. And
Hmm.
I'm sure, David, that you're doing a lot more now and got other things you're interested in. You're a film director, and tell us a little bit about. We know about Jack Beers, but we'll talk about him too. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on in your life now.
Um, well, am I recording now?
Yes.
You are. You're doing fine.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, well, I'm from New York originally, and I went to NYU Film School. And I'll try to be somewhat brief, but when I was at NYU Film School, they had 40 students, and they divided up the program into four films that everybody wrote a script, and then the head of the program chose four films to produce during the undergraduate program. This is 1982 to 1984. And basically, they chose this film that I wrote, that Jack Beers auditioned for. And Jack Beers, who this documentary, Holes in My Shoes, is about. Little did I know when we were making the film that Jack Beers and I would develop a relationship where he would become like a surrogate grandfather to me. And basically, on the film shoot, it was a short comedy. He he took a Manhattan phone book. He said, "Give me that Manhattan phone book," and he ripped it in half with his bare hands. It was this thick, the Manhattan phone book. He started to tell us about his participation in World War II, in building Radio City Music Hall, in being a strongman in the 1920s and 30s, and going on to do many, many great things in life. Became a professional dog trainer at the Westminster Kennel Club shows, all these amazing things. But there he was just an actor. I didn't know at that time that he was actually a self-made millionaire, and he was had at that point been an actor in over 200 films, in eight Woody Allen films,
Oh,
four films with Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep, George Segal, many, James Caan, many famous people that he had acted in these films with, mostly as an extra. But in my film, he was the lead in this film called Rosie and Jonesy, which is a short comedy about a Jewish guy and a black guy who are old friends who were plumbers together, and it's a little sweet comedy. Fast forward 20 years to 2004. I went to Los Angeles. I had a career as a director on some level, but I was washing cars, waiting tables, building kitchens in Chinese restaurants, all kinds of things to pay the bills. And I had an opportunity to come over to England, where my first wife was from, and manage the business and legal affairs department for a very well-known film company in England called ITC Entertainment. They did the film On Golden Pond, you might remember, and other famous British television shows like The Prisoner and The Saint and Thunderbirds and things like that. But then I left that job, became a quite a active children's television director. I directed the Teletubbies, for 4 to 5 years, which is the world's biggest children's show, and many other shows for the BBC and Nickelodeon. Created an animation series, produced a TV series called Picture Windows with Norman Jewison, who directed Fiddler on the Roof and many other, In the Heat of the Night, Moonstruck. So we brought to life 6 famous paintings with 6 well-known directors. We did that in 1995. And that's kind of like the types of things I did in my career. 2004 came along, and Jack and I were still close. Jack was actually probably was around 2000. Let me go back just a little bit because it's quite amazing. So around when Jack was 90 years old in the year 2000, because he was born the same day as me, July 27th, we have the same birthday. And he had, if you watch the film, you'll see he never had children. So in a way, I became kind of like a son in a way to him that he never had. In 2000, we were just starting to get into the internet, weren't we? And Jack said, yeah, I'm going to take a writing course to write my autobiography. I said, oh, really? That's amazing. At 90 years old, you're going to do a course on how to write a book? And he said, yeah. So he's writing his book with a pencil, and it's taking him forever, right? So I said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to order you a box of tapes. You're going to record your life story into the tape. I'm going to send it to somebody in Connecticut. They're going to transcribe it, and they're going to email me your story, which is exactly what they did. He recorded 13 90-minute tapes of his life story. They emailed me a 600-page book of his life. And from that and reading that, which was just extraordinary, and I've only mentioned before just a few of the things that Jack did, I said, Jack, we've got to make this into a film. This is just extraordinary. So I decided to put some money into it myself, and so did he. And we got Mayor Bloomberg's office behind us. He was the mayor at the time, so he assigned the film commissioner to our film to be in our film and give Jack something on behalf of Mayor Bloomberg. And then, I just called different people at the Empire State Building, Radio City Music Hall. I talked to the Oak Ridge Museum and the mayor's office, and talked to the people at Y12, and found all kinds of amazing things that we could do to celebrate his life. And that is kind of like what happened. We went into production. We filmed for 2 weeks. I was living with a 94-year-old man. But just before I get into that, the most amazing thing happened, which was when we were sending out, remember CD-ROMs? We were sending out CD-ROM videos to Woody Allen, Meryl Streep, Arthur Hiller, the director, many, many other people, Dustin Hoffman, with Jack sitting there and inviting them to be in his film. Woody Allen wasn't in the film, but he did us a favor. He never has let his films be in another film. And he let us include a scene from Bananas that Jack Beers was in our film, which his lawyer in New York said he's never going to say yes. And he said yes, which was amazing. Meryl Streep agreed to a clip of her in a Roy Scheider film that Jack was in about Auction House many, many years ago. So that was in there. And people just did like favors. But when he was done filming these invitations, these video invitations, he said to my production manager, "Are we done?" She said, yeah. Her name was Charlie. He said, "Go get me that Greenwich, Connecticut telephone book." And she said, "Why?" And you can imagine, he's 94, okay? He says, "I'm going to rip it. I haven't ripped a phone book since I did David's film 20 years ago, but I'm going to give it a go." So he braces himself. You'll remember the beginning of the film. And he, not only does he rip it in half, throws that down, then he rips the half in half, and then if you think about, we're about to talk about science a little bit because of the Y12, but if you can imagine the physics, or I don't even know what the correct scientific area is, to be able to rip something that is, let's say, 4 inches by 4 inches
Right.
and about 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. There's not a lot of space, not a lot of give room. Anyway, he had hands like shovels, and he ripped it in half and said, 94 years, 94 years old, and I'm still going strong, right? Well, that to me was the perfect way to start the film, Holes in My Shoes, because that way, with no edits, just from beginning to end, you're going to have to believe what we're about to tell you.
Yeah.
So I started the film with that because that was going to convince the audience that this guy was the real deal.
Right. Amazing.
That is amazing. You're exactly right. That was a tremendous opportunity for you to meet Jack Beers and get to be that close to him. And you produced a really quality product in Holes in My Shoes.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Jack's experience in Oak Ridge, since that's what this show's about. Tell us a little bit about what he did in Oak Ridge.
Do you want to know what he did during the war?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I'll need to tell you a brief history about Jack's career path as a iron welder, structural engineer, and then general foreman. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Jack started off at he was earning all his money as a strongman. And then there was an anti-Semitic attack on him in a bar, and somebody broke his hand with a pool cue and a stick, and it ruined his career. And he was learning with the world's strongest men in Brooklyn, and lifting up 12 people on his back. I've got photos of him pulling cars with his teeth. Everything. And I actually have some of the equipment still that he has. And I have a poster from the early 1900s of the people that he was studying with. Anyway, when that ended, he went and got a job at Fassler's in the Lower East Side in New York. And he became an iron welder, a self-taught iron welder. And he then went to the New York Public Library and studied structural engineering on his own by just staying very late at night and reading all the books. And so he came back to Mr. Fassler, and he said, give me the good jobs to run some of these things. I mean, before that, he had worked on the New York Coliseum, the George Washington Bridge, Radio City Music Hall, probably every famous building in Manhattan and the surrounding areas. All the Con Ed buildings he built, everything. Anyway, Mr. Fassler, he said, let me show you what I can do. So he showed him how he could be a structural engineer, and he ended up becoming a prolific structural engineer for this guy who was building every single thing in Manhattan. Then he moves on to Stone and Webster, who were one of the key builders of the Secret City of Oak Ridge. And I'm not sure if you're able to share some images during this podcast, but all of Jack's passes, all his blueprints, everything just said Stone and Webster, Jack Beers. And he became one of the 3 general foremen of, that Stone and Webster assigned him to come to Oak Ridge and be one of the 3 general foremen. When he sat down with the other general foremen, they said, well, what year did you graduate from MIT? And he said, well, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I'm self-taught at the New York Public Library. Well, they couldn't believe it. Jack went to Oak Ridge, and he was given the assignments to not only, as everybody that probably listens to your podcast knows, that this kind of city cropped up out of nowhere. So he was not responsible for just building Y12, which we filmed in, right? So if you see the film, there's an 11 minute section of us filming in Y12. And he built the schools, he built the churches, he built the roads, the residential homes. We drove when we came to do the filming. We drove to the area he lived in, and we had the whole tour. And so this was 250,000 people. Is that correct? So I think about 250,000 people living there during the war.
No, 75,000 living there.
75,000. Okay, so 75,000, but he was responsible for that, and everybody, he said, was working for one purpose, which was to end the war, but nobody knew what they were doing.
Right.
So Jack was building the racetracks one after another and setting the tanks that were somewhere between 10 to 16 tons, and depending on the racetrack.
Yeah.
And so he had a moment of inspiration where he thought, I think I can figure out a way to lift and set these tanks much, much faster than we are, because they're taking one day to do one tank, 5 men, 8 hours, 1 day, right? So that's 40 hours. So he said, goes to his superior, and he says, I have this idea. Here's the drawing. I need some iron. He said, there's no iron. What are you talking about? There's no spare iron. So Jack, one night or a few nights, whatever it was, he got a couple of guys, and they built this thing that I think he called it the trunnion or something like that. And they did a test, and it took to pick up the tank, lift it, and set it into the racetrack, which was, if for your viewers who don't know what that is, that's what was separating the uranium. And he did it in 20 minutes. And then he went and he showed his boss, and he said, how quick can you build me 4 more? Anyway, they started to do that, and he introduced them to General Groves and said, General Groves, this is the man who's increased the speed of the process. People don't realize this, but Jack was able to create something that saved Oak Ridge 2 years off the process.
Yeah.
There were that many tanks that were having to be set, and that's what it took to do the splitting. So, and people also don't know that same Y12 racetrack was used for cancer research and other things afterwards as well. And so it really helped in other areas of science afterwards. So Jack we have this plaque, where he's acknowledged by the Secretary of State for his participation in World War II. He got his A-bomb pin. He, he had a great conversation with Bill Wilcox about the existential side of being a part of that and trying to wrestle with your conscience about what you were involved with, and, ending something that was killing, millions and millions around the world. Was that more important? Is that, and it was a very difficult thing. Jack felt proud of what he did for ending the war, and that's how he felt. He felt that it was a shame that all those people had to die, and that's very sad. But he felt that if it had not stopped, it would have. He feels that millions and millions more would have died around the world, and who knows. So I think he had a pretty clear conscience about it. He always said that of all the things that he did in his life, building Radio City, he put the spire on top of the Empire State Building, He was in over 250 films. He was a strong man performing to, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin in theaters. He got his family out of poverty. He said the most important thing and the thing that he was most proud of was what he did in Oak Ridge.
Well, David, that's a pretty his feelings about that is pretty universal. I mean, for the people that were there and the people that worked on it, I've made several documentaries about Oak Ridge, and I always ask people that worked on the original project, so now once you found out, how did you feel? And it was just almost exactly what you just explained, the way that he felt. I had one guy. He said he's passed away now, but he says I'm proud of what we did. He says no, I'm not proud of what we did. He says I'm proud to know that there was a job that needed to be done and we did it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that feeling with those folks.
So let's bring it forward a little bit. What are you working on now?
Well, interestingly, I've been a filmmaker for all these years, and the way that I pay for my bills, the way I finance other creative projects is I do corporate videos. So I'm one of the main filmmakers for one of the world's leading satellite companies. They're called SES, based in Luxembourg. And I've been very privileged to work for them and do some beautiful films for them around the world for the last 15 years. Right. Basically making films showing how satellites and satellite connectivity makes a difference in people's lives. That has parlayed into obviously other things as well, dealing with the internet and their whole portfolio has expanded to include many areas of communication. But I've been very privileged to travel to Greenland, to the Cook Islands, to the Galapagos, really every continent, and make films for SES. And it's been an incredible joy, great people, and they've make interesting documentary style films, some more corporate and promotional and marketing and sales videos, but most of these are kind of really beautiful human interest stories. So that's one of the things that I've done, but I've also I'm constantly working on my creative career as well. So looking at bringing to life in a second series, I mentioned before having famous paintings and bringing them to life. So we're working on that as a new series called Provenance. And I'm trying to get I have been involved in children's TV, as I said, and I got an animated TV series off the ground with Nickelodeon Worldwide and other children's shows, Disney Junior and so on. And now I have, as an executive producer and co-writer, I'm taking a musical that was here in England that was for children and trying to make an animated feature film with that right now, with really the world's best animation studio in stop motion animation called McKinnon and Saunders, who do all the Tim Burton films and Wes Anderson, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio they were involved in. So I'm getting to develop a new film called The Mouse Queen with them. I'm doing that right now, so that's really exciting. And writing my own autobiography, which is quite fun. And always contemplating, how can I continue the story of Jack Beers? Because part of me feels like could have been a film, it could have been a musical, it could have been an animated film, it could be puppet show, it could have been so many things, his story. So I'm always keeping in the back of my mind, how do we keep Jack Beers' story alive? Because it's really, if you look at the film, still it's timeless. It doesn't date itself. And many people have said it should be in in schools and things like that. It did quite well. It was on Netflix for 7 years, and it was on about 10 different airlines around the world. And on PBS in New York, it aired prime time for 7 years. So it's been seen by millions of people, which is really nice. And it actually, won 4 Best Documentary Awards, including the Secret City Film Festival.
Yeah, sure. Where, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it available now? Is it someplace where people can find it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Can we put it in the when you show the podcast, we can
Sure.
put it in the wording underneath?
Yeah, sure. We can.
Can.
We can put a
Yeah.
link in there. So,
I'll give you a Vimeo link that people can watch it for free.
okay, great.
Ah, that'll be good. Yep.
That will be great.
Use that.
90 minutes, it's 90 minutes long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Okay, good.
Do you have any of that? You talked about his paraphernalia. You talked about Jack. Do you have any of that on your computer that you could share a screen? I should have asked you before we started.
You do. I sent it all to you.
Oh, you turned that one on me, didn't you?
I just sent you all those. Did you download them? I think I sent it to you on WeTransfer, didn't I?
Yeah, I do not remember downloading those.
Oh,
You
okay.
you
Oh,
may
wait.
have.
Oh, man. Oh, so, well, the issue that I have is I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
little bit hard for me to show that, but I can share. I can go to WeTransfer right now, send
Okay,
it to you, and you can share it if you want.
Yeah,
great.
what we can do is we can get that from off of Ray's computer, and we can post some of that stuff, the images of some of that stuff in the comments for the
I
podcast.
can.
That'd
Yeah,
probably be the easiest way for us to do that.
we
So,
can do that for sure. And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's one great story about Jack. So how did he? How did he? How did this come about? I don't know. I don't think it's in the film, but he indicated on one of the blueprints of one of the main buildings that was had a racetrack in it,
mhm.
something in the corner that he wasn't supposed to do. He like put the name, like somebody's name or an address. He just did something in there, and he gets a knock on his door, and his wife says, I guess it was Tilly at the time, said there's somebody at the door for you. And there were 3 men in suits and ties. And they said, can we come in, please? And he said, of course, come in. He said, can you show us all your blueprints? Because Jack would keep them at home. He'd stay up late all night, and he was a workaholic. And he said, can you show us this particular one? So he opens it up, right? The original that everything was printed from. And they took out their pocket a scissor and they cut the corner off. And they said, don't do that again. And in Jack's house in Greenwich, Connecticut, in fact, it's in the Secret City, it's in the Oak Ridge Museum. If you open it up, there's a corner missing on one of them.
How funny. That sounds like them, doesn't it, Ray?
Yes, it does. That's exactly what they would do.
Exactly what they would do. So,
And that's in what you donated to the museum. I'll have to dig.
Yeah, I donated all the blueprints. I mean, there must have been about 10 or 15 of them that were left. Some are like a cream color, some are blue. But they all are, I mean, you'll see them I have them all photographed, professionally scanned in. So I need to find those. I have them on a drive somewhere, but they have the real ones there. They have all of those orange passes that say Stone and Webster, and yeah, lots of other things to do with his stay there.
Good deal.
very good. Very good.
We'll have to dig that out. And if you'll do that WeTransfer again, I apologize, but I just think I've missed it. And we'll put it up on the comments in the Facebook page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keith, anything else we want out
Oh,
of
oh,
David
thank you
today?
so much. This has really been interesting. We
It's been
appreciate it.
good. I
Really
tell you, we've really enjoyed it, and I think our viewers will learn some things about Jack Beers, and again, we will post the link that you give us so that folks can watch that documentary.
Yeah. Well, it
And
was, can I just say that I absolutely loved my time down in Oak Ridge. We came down there and we were taken to this old diner there with a big Coke, old-fashioned Coke machine. Is it called Johnson's or something like that?
Jefferson,
Or
Jefferson Diner.
Jefferson,
Jefferson's.
Jefferson. Yeah.
Jefferson Soda Fountain.
Is
Yeah.
it still there?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
There.
Well, I had myself some grits there, that's for sure.
You're right. They have good grits.
A lot of good things. A lot of good things come out from Jefferson. As a matter of fact, Ray and I had our first conversation almost 5 years ago at
Yeah.
Jefferson to talk about doing a podcast together. So
We did, didn't we?
here we are 4 years later.
And over 100 of them.
Well, we actually filmed in Jefferson's. I've got footage
Uh,
of Jefferson's in action. 20 well, we're talking 20 years ago now.
yeah,
But and
time
we
flies.
you know it was a part. We came down right at the time where it was the Secret City Festival, and so the mayor, um, God, what
Probably
was
David
Was
his?
it
Bradshaw.
David Bradshaw at the time, probably.
Yes,
Mm,
yes. He officially named that day
yeah,
Jack Beers Day.
he did. Mm.
And it was a special, special day. Jack was quite moved, quite tearful, and he just so loved his time. We loved his time. You'll remember Jack Beers got up on the stage at the Bluegrass Festival and sang some music. He sang "When You're Smiling" in front of the audience, and yeah, it was a great time. It was a very interesting time. I remember in Y12 looking behind the scenes and even seeing some drawers that were disused, that were old and rusty in the back that said "Top Secret" on them.
Oh yeah.
And is it still there?
Yes, it is still there.
Oh, good, because I read somewhere that another building had been taken down recently, but
Yes, they're taking down, right now, they're taking down the Alpha 2 building, which is the second one that had the racetracks in it. The one that's being preserved as a part of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park is Beta 3, 9204-3. Now, the Beta racetracks were not oval shaped, they were rectangular shaped, but those are still there and they will be preserved for posterity, and we're very proud for that. However, the rest of those buildings, the 9 buildings, 8 of those 9 will eventually come down.
will Y12 come down as well?
No, Y12 is probably, well, actually has more employees now than it's ever had, over 8,000 people working there. It still is our nation's storehouse for all of the highly enriched uranium that's not in a nuclear weapon or
Wow.
research reactors or in the Navy's ships. And it is refurbishing all of the active nuclear weapons that we have with the secondaries. So Y12 is the nation's center of excellence for uranium. Very, very much important to our national security. So
Well,
it's
if they ever want me to kind of just maybe take that or they can take the film and take the section out and they can show it to people because it's quite interesting, isn't it? It's quite historic. There's that conversation with Bill Wilcox, which is
yes.
fabulous. But listen, is there anything else I can contribute?
No, I think you've done really well in helping bring this story back to life here on Hidden Histories. We appreciate you doing that for us, and we wish you all the best, especially in your creative endeavors. I mean, yeah, you're doing a good job and and meeting the bills, but those things that you're working on and your autobiography, that's going to be an interesting thing too. So thank you for being willing to come on and share with our viewers an update on Jack Beers, but also an update on David Wachs.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Jack Beers, just a final thing, was aiming for 100 years old, and he lived to 1 week before his 99th birthday.
Is that right?
Wow.
So he was 98 and change, and he never drank, never, well, he drank once, and that stopped him from drinking the rest of his life. Never smoked,
Uh-huh.
but his only vice was chasing the broads, as he would say.
All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you, David. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you guys.
You
Yeah.
bet.
Take care.
All
You
right.
All
bet.
the best.
Yeah.
Ray, who do we have coming on next time?
All right, we've got Robert Burnham who will be here. You know, he wrote the book, The Armageddon Secret, and
Yes.
now he has another book that he's working on. He came through Oak Ridge just a few weeks ago, and we had dinner. And I was so interested in what he's working on now that I asked him if he would come on and tell us about it.
Okay.
So, this book is available, by the way, in the American Museum of Science and Energy and on Amazon, of course. But the new one that he's working on, I think, will be equally intriguing for folks to learn about.
All right. Well, very good. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new Hidden History.